All right, folks, showtime.
I took nothing more to heart than my father's return from his travels. After washing up and a spot of supper, Father would sit with me and tell me tales of his journeys outside of our small town. Father was a trader, and he traveled past the beyond and further. Because of his travels, he seemed to have a whole pile of books in his head. He would tell me of our beautiful country and the wonderful places he's been. He would also tell me of the many people who had worked so hard to make the colonies, which is where we lived, what they were today. It was a lot of wisdom for a small lass like me to collect, but good wisdom it was, because it had to do with our past. Father said that the past was important because we could only grow if we remember the past. I did not understand what Father meant until he began telling me the stories of how this country came to be and how it grew and keeps growing. And it all started many years ago, many more than my birthdays, I can tell you. It all began when the Spanish conquistadors who explored the Americas found gold and silver. To protect these mines from other European countries, Spain created a buffer that became known as the Spanish borderlands. It stretched across what are today northern Mexico and the southern United States from Florida to California. They built forts called presidios, which were ruled by royal officials of the King of Spain. The largest and most important was St. Augustine, built in 1565 on the Atlantic coast of Florida. It became the first permanent European settlement in the New World. 42 years before England built Jamestown, and 43 years before the French founded Quebec. The Spanish king also wanted to bring the Catholic faith to the natives of this new land, so missions were built so that the Spanish could work with the native people and eventually convert them to Christianity. Spanish customs were also introduced, and as time went by, the native customs and language began to disappear. The next country to send people here was France. The French began exploring North America in 1524, fishing the waters off Newfoundland and trading with the natives. Quebec was founded in 1608, and by 1625, its population had grown to only 60 people. This slow growth was because most French people were not interested in settling North America. They just wanted to trade and fish. But King Louis XIV hoped to build French influence in North America. So he declared New France to be a royal colony where he would rule rather than the business people. In 1672, the king appointed Count de Frontenac as Governor General. Frontenac did not always get along with King Louis, but was known to be friendly with the native people of the area. This relationship helped the colony prosper. Frontenac encouraged exploration of the West, but found it difficult because ships could not navigate the shallow river. The natives told Frontenac about the great river to the west called the Mississippi, or Father of the Waters. So, in 1673, Frontenac sent an expedition to find the Mississippi River. Later, the explorer La Salle's expedition reached the mouth of the Mississippi and claimed the entire Mississippi River Valley and all its tributaries for France. And in honor of King Louis XIV, he named this area Louisiana. The time had come again for Father to travel, but he was a hard-working man, so I understood. He told me that it was hard work that built the colonies, so I wasn't as sad when he left on his travels. I would miss him, but I knew the stories he would tell upon his return would make me proud. Like the stories of my ancestors, I took particular interest in those. My ancestors, the English, were the third European country to send people to North America. In the late 1500s, the English challenged the Spanish claims to North America by building colonies. The British came to North America for a variety of reasons. Nobles and adventurers came to find the rumored great riches. Ordinary people came to find a new and better life. Farmers came for cheap or free land, and many people came to practice their own religious beliefs. In 1585, Queen Elizabeth I sent Sir Walter Raleigh, an English noble, to set up England's first colony in North America. He took men to Roanoke Island, off what is now North Carolina. When he returned the next year, they were starving, so he took them home. In 1587, he took a second group. When he returned 3 years later, the colony had vanished. 20 years later, a group of businessmen, the Virginia Company, started the first permanent English colony in North America, calling it Jamestown. The decision to build at Jamestown proved to be a bad one. The water was unhealthy, there was disease from mosquitoes, and the natives attacked them. Also, the men chose to look for gold rather than plant or gather food for the winter. As a result, half the colonists died. England had a bit more success colonizing what is now the New England area. Many English citizens would find themselves leaving England for North America over religious differences. These new settlers were known as pilgrims, which are people who are seeking religious freedom. In 1620, these pilgrims sailed for Virginia from England on a ship called the Mayflower. Instead, they landed north, in an area that would become known as New England. They called their new home Plymouth, which is near today's Cape Cod. They had no time to build proper shelters. They suffered from disease, cold, and difficulties growing food. During that first hard winter, nearly half of the settlers died. In the spring, a Wampanoag Indian named Squanto helped them learn to live off the land and understand the Wampanoag people who lived there. In the fall, the pilgrims had a good harvest. They invited the Wampanoag, who had helped them survive, to feast and thank God with them. In 1630, a group of people known as the Puritans were led by John Winthrop to New England. They sailed to New England and founded a settlement on the Massachusetts Bay. They had a bold plan to build a new society that would be based on the laws of God as they appeared in the Bible. Far from the watchful eye of England, Puritans would run their colony their way. Within 10 years, this colony had 20,000 people and was one of the largest populations of any colony in North America. In 1636, Roger William, a Puritan minister, founded Providence, the first settlement in Rhode Island. He believed people should be allowed to have their own religious beliefs. So people of all religions were welcome in Rhode Island. Thomas Hooker, another Puritan minister, believed each church should be independent and choose its own leaders. So in 1636, he and about 60 followers founded the settlement of Hartford in the new colony of Connecticut. People began to spread out from Massachusetts Bay Colony and settle on the coast north of Boston, looking for fertile land and new ways to make a living. One such area that was rich with those resources was New Hampshire. As more and more colonists settled the area, an area used by natives for thousands of years, fighting between European settlers and the Indian nations increased. The largest conflict came in 1675, when Wampanoag Indians united with other tribes and attacked villages all over New England. The fighting lasted 15 months. It ended when the chief was captured and killed, and about 1,000 natives were sold into slavery in the West Indies. After many struggles, New England eventually became successful because of the rich resources supplied by the surrounding waters and forests. Now, Father told me that even though the English lived in a large part of the New World, we weren't the only ones to move here. Colonists came to build new lives and homes in America, hoping to build a profitable fur trade with the natives. Also, the land and climate proved to be good for farming. Colonists came from all over Europe to settle here. Roberto came to America from Spain. Father said that Spain was the first country to send people across the ocean. There were Dutch, French, Italian, and other Europeans too. In 1621, some Dutch merchants formed the Dutch West India Company to develop trade and farming in North America. New Netherland was started on the Hudson River in 1624 by 30 families. The Dutch promised freedom of religion, so along with the Dutch Protestants, Catholics, French Protestant, and Jews were allowed to buy land. New Amsterdam, the main settlement and port, became a trade center where beaver pelts and European-made goods were exchanged. Nearby, New Sweden was settled in 1637 in what is present-day Delaware, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. New Sweden became rich from the exports of animal pelts and crops, but in 1651, the New Netherland governor, Peter Stuyvesant, sent an army there and captured it, saying that they were on Dutch land. The Dutch people really did not last long in power, though. Father said this was because the hearts of the English were mightier than anyone around. Father was right. In 1664, King Charles II of England gave his brother, James, the Duke of York, all the land that was claimed by the Dutch at the time. The English told Peter Stuyvesant, governor of the colony, that he must give over all land possessed by the Dutch or fight a war. He surrendered, and New Netherland became New York, and New Amsterdam became New York City. Though England claimed the colony, all the people were allowed to keep their land and religious practices. New York City developed rapidly as a port and center of business and culture. James, Duke of York, felt that the New York colony was too large to govern, so he made a proprietary colony, which means he gave a large piece of land west of the Hudson River to two friends, Sir George Carteret and Lord John Berkeley, who started the colony of New Jersey. In 1702, New Jersey was returned to the control of the English crown. King Charles II owed William Penn's family money, so agreed to give Penn a royal charter to land west of New Jersey. The king named it Pennsylvania, which means Penn's Woods. Penn's government plan guaranteed religious freedom for all persons who believed in God. Its colonists elected representatives to an assembly, which consisted of their representatives, a council appointed by the king, and a governor. As Penn's belief in the freedom of religion became known, immigrants from many countries came to the Pennsylvania colony. Immigrants helped Pennsylvania prosper. Some were skilled workers, bakers, carpenters, shoemakers, tailors, butchers, and blacksmiths who set up shops. Others started small farms nearby and sold food in cities and towns. Philadelphia, the capital of the colony, was named after an ancient city in the Bible whose Greek name means brotherly love. Because it was at an important location for shipping and trade, it grew by the late 1700s to be the largest city in the American colonies, as well as a great center of culture, learning, and ideas. William Penn wanted his colony to have a port on the Atlantic Ocean, so the Duke of York gave him rights to the Delaware colony, an area by the sea then governed by New York. In 1704, Delaware and Pennsylvania agreed to separate so that each could make their own laws. The middle colonies had a greater mix of peoples than either the New England or Southern colonies. Words from many cultures became a part of the common language of the area. Food from other cultures became a part of the lives of middle colonists too. The economy of the middle colonies was based on farming of grain and cattle, lumber, manufacturing, and fishing. The land and weather in the middle colonies were much better for farming than in the New England colonies. They became known as the breadbasket colonies, exporting grain, meat, and butter to other colonies and Europe. Skilled settlers manufactured most kinds of hardware, clocks, watches, locks, guns, flints, glass, stoneware, nails, and paper. The country was growing, as Father said it would. I knew this to be true because he brought me home so many things from his travels. Something else Father did was make our home here in the beautiful South. And like the other areas in the colonies, the South has a story of its own. I know that Virginia, established in 1607 by the Virginia Company, was the first successful British colony. It flourished because of the riches brought by growing and selling tobacco. This brought many settlers to Virginia. Some people also came for religious freedom, while others came just for the adventure. Another reason the Virginia colony succeeded was its strong government. In 1619, America's first election of lawmakers took place. As more colonists came to Virginia, they had to get their land further inland on the frontier. This ran out more natives. As in New England, this disagreement over land led to fighting between settlers and natives. As the success of farming was the mainstay of the economy, it led to the formation of plantations and the importation of large numbers of African slaves. In 1624, the Virginia Company went out of business because of poor management. The king quickly took back its charter and made it a royal colony. This way he could rule Virginia and keep its tobacco profits for himself. The colony of Maryland was founded in 1634 by Lord Baltimore as a place for Catholics to worship in freedom. It was also a place to make money, as the people had done in Virginia. Maryland's charter allowed people of all Christian faiths to settle here. By the late 1600s, Protestants outnumbered Catholics. To avoid religious conflict, the Government Assembly created the first law in North America to guarantee some people religious freedom. In 1663, the English established a colony named Carolina. It included all the land south of Virginia and north of Spanish Florida. The settlers here were promised freedom of religion, but in early 1700s, people who were not members of the Church of England had to pay a special tax. James Oglethorpe, a respected English general, told the king, "England will grow rich by sending her poor abroad." In 1732, Oglethorpe and 114 followers established Georgia, named for King George II, as a colony for poor people. By the time the Georgia colony was established, England had been colonizing America for over 100 years. From the northern forested land of what is now Maine to the southern coastal plains of my home in Georgia, Each of the 13 English colonies was growing, just as Father had told me. And within these colonies, everyone had their own reasons why and where they settled. Because of this, there was great variety across the colonies. A variety of nationalities and religions, variety in their forms of government, variety in dealing with the natives, and variety in the ways they made a living. But with all this variety, there was one common similarity. They all worked very hard to build their communities and a future. And who would have guessed that in less than 50 years, these 13 colonies would become the United States of America?
Who is Annabelle? Was she famous?
Well, I guess she is, in a way, famous like those who learned from the past and used what they learned to build a future.
Annabelle did all that, Miss Sloan?
That she did, Zach, and a good future it was.